if you don't mind, I will ask about your century. But before that, can you just describe the Michael Neser moment? You've shared a house with him, and just the long wait and to get that wicket in the second ball.
Oh look, I think you saw. I think Mitchell Swepson got to the huddle before some of the people in the field. Yeah, we were all so happy for him. What he's done for the last 4 years in Shield cricket. Averaging something like 19 with a ball. He's just worked hard. Obviously, I spent a lot of time with him. We're very, very good mates, and it's just so exciting to see him take that first one, which can always be the toughest one. And just give him the confidence he can come back tomorrow and just lock into his work. And I think this wicket really suits his bowling.
And just on your knock, do you think this is the best you've left? Like they bowled challenging lengths at times. They mixed it up a little, and just overall about your knock.
Yeah, well, probably not the best considering I got out leaving LBW. But yeah, I think that's also always a part of my game that I've had is being able to leave the ball well, that decision making around off stump. I think in particular the start of this, probably the sort of majority of this innings, I thought I left the ball quite well. Never really felt in. It was sort of one of those wickets, and you always felt like you were grinding away. You never felt like any of the runs I was making out there was easy. And I think the way the tail batted then, obviously at the end there, is great. They're free runs. You put those extra runs on the board, and the 2 wickets tonight.
I know the rain's come in that last session and lost you a few overs, but in terms of the general timing of how everything's worked out for you in this first innings, it's almost felt like from yesterday this is the position you were trying to engineer. Is that sort of fair to say, to have this session under lights, and did it all come together almost perfectly apart from the forecast
the weather?
now?
Yeah, you're spot on. I think as we're going to play more pink ball, there's going to be more strategy and tactics. And this is certainly one of the strategies and tactics is managing the night session and managing sort of the tougher times to bat and the easier times to bowl and vice versa. And I think what you said perfectly, if you as a batting group can get through a day, 2, 3, 4 down, and you can have the opposition bat in that night session, you can do some damage. Now, tonight we only had maybe 10 overs, Adam, and we got 2 wickets. So it certainly seems to be doing a little bit more at night. But like I said, I felt like this wicket, it was doing plenty the whole game. You felt like, you're always in the game from a bowler's perspective.
Marnus, do you think in some ways the tactics that England employed as far as, really hammering the ball in short once, I guess it wasn't as new, do you think that played into your hands somewhat in terms of batting for time and trying to make sure you are engineering the right time for your bowlers to bowl?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they had that heavy leg side field, which, brings that scoring rate right down. So they obviously employed that, to try and stop that scoreboard and probably try and do a similar thing as we just spoke about. Stop the runs in the daytime and then strike at night. Now, I mean, it's easy for us to sit back here and say, oh, geez, that ploy didn't work, but I glove one down leg and I was dropped. So if that gets taken, I'm on 20. The game might look a bit differently. And likewise, same in the night session. We ended up going in unscathed through the night session, but I nicked one to Joss and he unfortunately dropped it. But, so it's just that sort of tactics. It's easy to sit back and sort of see how the game's looked. But, currently I think that's how it goes. Night and day sessions are quite different.
And if I could just quickly, after that innings today, you're back second of all time in terms of Test averages, just behind Bradman, only man ahead of you. I think you went 5th fastest to 2,000 runs in this innings as well. Are you the kind of guy that at all, do you let that sink in at all? Surely when you realise you're second behind Bradman, it must be a pretty special feeling.
Oh, look, that's the first I've heard of the second behind Bradman. So, yeah, I think it's a special feeling. But, Bradman's done and a couple of nick-offs and you're right back down the pecking order. So I think you can't really think like that. I mean, for me, I just think about trying to score as many runs as possible each innings to put us in positions to win games. and obviously the personal, performances and accolades are nice, but winning games for Australia is by far the most enjoyable part.
Marnus, you made your Sheffield Shield and first class debut back here in 2014, I think it was, and you've got a great record here. Is there anything in particular about Adelaide that brings the best out of you?
Probably more recently, I think it's the bounce in Adelaide. I think the wicket's actually got some good, consistent bounce and pace, which probably draws out more similar characteristics to the Gabba. So, yeah, maybe it's that. Maybe it's just the fact that, there's a little bit of extra bounce and obviously at the Gabba I know I can leave the ball on length. So that's probably something that that just coming off the top of my mind, is probably something that correlates there. But, I mean, it's obviously a lovely venue to play, and I've only played pink ball test matches here, so it's quite different than playing red ball games here in Sheffield Shield.
And with the pink ball, I think you've become the first player to get 3 centuries against the pink ball. Is there anything particular that you found batting against the pink ball and why you've had so much success with it?
No, if anything, I found it's harder. It's certainly it's harder to get a rhythm and a feel with the pink ball, and every pink ball game is so different. We played here against Pakistan, and the wicket had a bit of less grass on it, so it was a bit flatter, and the bounce was quite consistent. We played here last summer against India, and it was quite two-paced, and it was quite up and down. And then we obviously played this game, and once again, there was a bit more grass. It felt like it was seaming all day when they put the ball in the right area. Even this morning came out, it just felt like you didn't know where your run was going to come from.
Marnus, could you please describe what was going through your mind when that lightning strike hit the venue? What was it like out there when the moment happened?
From me, I was sort of just saw the big lightning bolt, big flashing camera, it almost looked like. Not really much. I was just hoping we could stay on the field because we get more wickets, but unfortunately that's why there's rules to make sure play safety. But yeah, I think Michael Neser sort of turned around. He was a bit spooked by the noise and the thunder, and obviously Milan sort of pulled away and was a bit put off by it.
Of course, you made your Ashes debut in also 11th hour circumstances like Michael Neser. Do you think, some sort of advantage of maybe being thrown in last minute and not having a big build-up into an Ashes debut?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's that. There's definitely a positive outlook on it. Sort of not having 3 or 4 days simmering on it. Working out how you're going to get your first wicket, your first run, and overthinking it. Obviously, you still got told the night before that he was possibly playing, so he would have already had that, but he would have only had one night. So I think it definitely helps. I can only speak from my experience, but it definitely helped me in my experience because I just went out there and played. I didn't have time to think about Jofra charging in, and all the circumstances, the things that go through your head as a batter.
Marnus, Steve Smith is captain the last couple of days. What's it been like? What are the talks been like? What's his, what was it like in the dressing room? How's he handled the situation?
Very well. He's obviously captained a lot for Australia, so this is not new to him. And he's been great. His communication with the team, after play and before play in the morning, he's very clear. And this is the first time I've been captained by Steve. And it's nice to see him in that leadership role. He's doing a great job. But yeah, from a team dynamic, I don't think anything's really changed with Steve and Pat. I think it's we're very collective in that sort of helping each other out and making sure it's real clear for everyone.
Quickly, it's Mitchell Starc against Rory Burns. I mean, got him again. Do you think there's a bit of a mental battle there that Mitch is clearly winning?
It seems that way, but I mean, we all know as Starkey's bowled some really good balls at him in the first 2 games, but it's a 5-game series, so we don't want to go too far ahead with being on top of each other and anything like that. We just want to make sure that we keep driving the game forward and keep putting England under pressure. And, Starkey's doing a beautiful job at getting rid of Rory Burns early at the moment.
Marnus, we saw, with Michael Neser's first over and, bowling really full, and I guess how challenging it can be to drive on that pitch. Were you happy that you maybe weren't asked to play that shot as often as you might have been, given that you were allowed to leave a lot of balls with the length signal of bowling?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point you bring up about that length. I think there's two ways you look at it. Most of their bowlers, economy rates were 2. Mate, some of them even were under 2. I think Ollie Robson and Jimmy and even Brody might have been under 2. So I think there's two ways, right? If you bowl that slightly more back of a length, it's tougher to score, but obviously not as attacking, and you don't bring the stumps into play as much. So I think. From our perspective, we try and learn from that and make sure that we, are challenging the stumps as much as we can.
Marnus, just on the Steve thing, you say it's the first time he's captained you. Is he any different to bat with as a captain, as a teammate? And he threw his arm around you going off at the end of the play last night. I was wondering if he had any words of wisdom at that stage.
No, he said, go buy a lottery ticket. Yeah, so no, nothing really. Apart from last night, that's all he said to me. So no, I don't really have much else for you on him. I think he's, it's nice to see him with that energy and enthusiasm, get some runs like he did today. I think he's been batting beautifully, and obviously he hasn't played a test match before the last test match in almost 300 days. So I think spending time in the middle is really good.